everyone. It is our favorite time of the week. Time for Rising Qs when we answer your questions. All right, question number one we have here from Lindsay. What impacts do you foresee a potential coronavirus outbreak having on the primary and general election? Saagar.
Lindsay, you're speaking straight to my heart. There are so many that we can't. Basically, the way I've compared to this and think about this is like the financial crisis, which is something that's lurking in the background throughout 2007, 2008, and then all of a sudden it becomes the only thing that we end up caring about, and it ends up to go on to define the next 2 decades of American politics. I sincerely believe that it could have the exact same effect. So let's think about this. In terms of trade, this actually bolsters the Trump agenda quite significantly because it highlights the issue of supply chains. There's something Trump has talked a lot about, how we don't build anything anymore. We don't make anything anymore. Our medicines are all made in China. We need domestic manufacturing and all of this. In terms of Bernie, can you think of a better way to get the public energized about Medicare for all than when we get to a system? Let's put this in perspective. Public health experts say 40 to 70% of the global population could be infected. Let's say this thing goes complete pandemic, 40% of the U.S. population, that's 350 million. That's how they say about 20% of people who get infected with coronavirus are people who need to be hospitalized. That's all those people hitting the hospital system within a minor amount of period. This is how it worked in SARS. This is how it worked in China. Can you think of a better way to reveal the crooks and the hospital administrators and within and the way this all works? And by the way, our insurance system and our hospital system is not even very efficient at taking care. We don't even have the beds to take care of this many people all at the same time. China put up a hospital in 10 days. 10 days for 1,000 beds or something like that. We don't have that capacity.
Well, and they're also, the authoritarianism means they can just lock down an entire city, lock down an entire province. We certainly can't do that. On the Medicare for All piece, I saw this news article. This is just the beginning, the very tip of the iceberg. Young man, Miami resident, who had traveled to China, came back, was feeling ill. And he wanted to get checked and make sure he was fine, not only for himself, but so he's not infecting other people around him. He goes to the hospital to get checked. It was $3,100 to get checked for coronavirus. So when you think about that, suddenly Medicare for All isn't just about, do I have coverage? It's about, does everyone around me have the care that they need so they're not going around, going to work, going to pick up their kids from school, going on the subways, going on the buses, etc., without having sought proper medical care and making sure that they are not infected with this virus? That's where things get really, really incredibly scary. It's not like we have a good health system in this country. Let's be real about that. So you talk about the health effects, you talk about massive economic effects, you talk about trade, you talk about travel. I mean, look, we don't know how, it's chaos theory at this point. You don't know how it's all going to unfold.
There's something for everybody.
Yeah.
There's truly something for everybody. With Trump, he's got the borders, he's got trade, supply chain, China. Bernie's got the healthcare piece. I mean, Warren has been talking a lot about, what I encourage everybody to do? Go read World War Z. I know it's about zombies, but it's actually a political kind of commentary on what goes, what does a pandemic kind of reveal about your society? They talk a lot about stuff like this, outbreak, vaccines, price gouging, even the media's role and all that. So it's very important.
By the way, Alex Azar, who's HHS, couldn't guarantee that right now there is no coronavirus vaccine, but couldn't guarantee that vaccine would be affordable because the markets have to be able to work their will, people have to be able to invest, which is just a very unsettling, uncomfortable thing for him to have said. We will be covering this extensively, don't worry. Next up, Saagar, what do we have?
Number 2, in a general election, this is from Jorge, what is more important to win Michigan or Florida? Specifically look at the general election between Trump and Sanders. What do you think, Krystal?
All right, so I think if it's Trump and Sanders, Michigan for sure. I think of the swing states, Florida is probably the most challenging for Bernie. Just looking at the demographics, older voters have had the most reluctance to embrace him in terms of Latino populations, where in most places he has a strength. It's more complicated, certainly in Florida, where it tends to be more conservative, Cuban Americans, et cetera. So I think Michigan is the much better play for Bernie versus Florida. I would also say that I think Sanders has a lot of disproportionate strength in the Sun Belt states,
right.
In Arizona in particular, because that is a Latino population that has really responded to him, where they've done a lot of organizing and a lot of work. So there's a possibility there as well.
I think Michigan, no question, Jorge, it's the true bellwether of whether the Obama-Trump voter will go to Sanders on the similar economic populist message. So to me, if Bernie Sanders wins the presidency, it means he's taking back Michigan, Wisconsin, or Pennsylvania. So Michigan, no questions asked, is the most important state. For not the most important state, it's the most important type of population that Bernie needs to win if he wants to be president.
It looks unlikely that Bloomberg will be the nominee. If he was, I would say he would have a better shot at Florida.
Yes, absolutely. He'd do very well there.
He would do well there. All right, last question. Thoughts on Jon Stewart's legacy and its impact on politics, and also on his 2004 Crossfire appearance. So for those of you who, I don't know, have been living under a rock and haven't watched that, or just want to relive it like I do, let's take a look at Jon Stewart on Crossfire.
Right now you're helping the politicians and the corporations, and we're left out there to mow our lawns.
You just said we're too rough on them when they make mistakes.
No, you're not too rough on them. You're part of their strategies. You're partisan, what do you call it, hacks.
You're partisan.
Yeah.
What do you call it?
I had complicated feelings about this.
I know. You
My
like
old boss,
you like
Carlson.
Tucker.
Yeah, you know what?
Tucker's been, friendly to me as well. So
Tucker has evolved significantly from that time. He likes to say that he's said stupid things, and unfortunately for him, he's been on television for the last 30 years, and so that's part of the problem here. I do think that moment did highlight the hackery of a lot of political commentary, and that
he was a Republican establishment tool at that point. Let's be honest.
He has evolved to, in my view, the most heterodox thinker on television. I don't know if it's because of Jon Stewart. I think Jon Stewart certainly. CNN's president at the time came out and admitted that appearance actually led to the cancellation.
Basically
of Crossfire.
destroyed them, yeah.
And so I do think, maybe in some ways it's the best thing that ever happened, because Stewart kind of revealed how insane it is to just have one team only. Look at the success of this show. It succeeds only because we're both willing to call out our own sides. And that is actually what I think people have been yearning for in this country for a very, very, very long time. So from that perspective, I can't help but admire Stewart for at least trying to expose it. And what's the funnier part? Tucker's changed his tune. Paul Begala is still saying the same stuff.
Yeah, I'm on CNN with him sometimes, hearing him say the same stuff. I think Jon Stewart, a lot of times people miss that the core of what he did with The Daily Show was media critique. He would lambast CNN and Fox. It was
fantastic.
It was amazing. It was hysterical. And we find, on this show, some of the things that you all respond most to is when we do media critique, because they take themselves so seriously, and the whole setup is often so ridiculous, and they're focused on things that really don't matter. Remember when there was that cruise ship and CNN did breaking news all day long about this one cruise ship? It had to be towed in and all of this.
He was great at that.
He was phenomenal at that. And I think that there's a real desperate need to have someone fill that hole that he left, because really no one is doing it at the level and with the consistency that he did during that time period.
Yeah, I've always liked him, and I really miss his voice. I really do.
Indeed. All right. Thanks for watching, guys. We're going to have more stuff for you later today.